All right, guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be reacting to Togi's spiritual journey and his spiritual experience through a lens of the Kabbalah, because I believe his experience can be used to gain a degree of furthering enlightenment for all of us. So let's get started here.
Cabo. I've just been rotting in bed, giga hungover. This is actually, it feels really good. It's the first time getting out of the house, getting back on the camera. In the last week, I've had a lot of time to reflect on the entire experience. Kind of the conclusion that I came to is that Cabo was reasonably fun, but overall, I enjoyed it a lot less than I would have imagined. It was this really big event in my head. I think we spent maybe $250,000, $300,000 on the whole thing. It was really like the bender to end all benders. I was so excited about it.
So I'm going to pause right here and reference the tree of life here. So when you talk about having a $300,000 bender, that experience is rooted very deeply in the lowest level of material existence, and that is Malkuth, that foundation. So we see that at the bottom. Now, I would say Togi is one of the best Malkuth maxers there is out there. He knows exactly what he's doing. Um, One thing I would also show is the hermeneutical loop. So when he's talking about going through all of these experiences and coming back down and thinking that, oh, it should have been this way, it should have been so much better. Um, he's just engaging with what we see as the phenomena, the part of the life, and then he's comparing it when he's back on top of the hill, when he's at that top of the loop with the whole understanding every bit of the part. He's like, why did we even do this? So this cycling through the hermeneutical loop is actually how you ascend the tree of life. So he's trying to contemplate Malkuth when he's breaching into Yesod, which is kind of that self-love idea in the middle path. And we'll get into how he starts to transition into uh, on the right side the pillar of mercy, and on the left side the pillar of severity, as he goes through and contemplates Malkuth, his experience in the world, but from a different Sephiroth, from a different level of consciousness. So let's keep going here.
Until I was actually doing it, I was more or less not necessarily miserable, but I could feel that it's not where I needed to be. I thought what I needed was a bender, and it is not even close to what I needed. So we'll just recap like the last 6 months of my life.
So typically, a bender is not what you need when you're contemplating God, or trying to meet God. Typically, a bender is doing the opposite. It's going down the tree. It's usually the wrong direction. When you find yourself thinking you need to break out of your cage, that's typically a call for you to change from the right pillar or the left pillar. So from mercy to severity. But the idea is that, yeah, the idea is that if you find yourself getting stuck on one perspective, you can always contemplate it from the other side.
I went sober. For the first 3 months of being sober, I was obsessed with getting closer to God. It was like the most incredible 3 months of my life. After about 3 months of sobriety and chasing God and reading the Bible and praying, I got lazy with the whole thing. Since getting sober was such a significant battle for me, once I feel like I had that kind of under control, I started lacking entirely on all other aspects in my relationship with God.
So this is an excellent observation for him to come to. When you try to ascend using only one of the pillars, when you try to ascend only one rung of this ladder, I'll see if I can find an image here that can encapsulate this a little bit better. But Here we go. So when you try to ascend just on the pillar of severity, you can't climb up as fast as if you are climbing both rungs of the ladder. Think about trying to climb a ladder using just one hand. You might fall off. And so that's what Togi is experiencing here by trying to enter into these higher states of consciousness, higher states of awareness, without the proper mental conditioning or the proper self conditioning in view of his role in place in the world. We're going to keep going because I have some more notes I want to get through.
In my head, it was like, all right, as long as I'm sober, I'm getting closer to God. We're good. In the last like month of me being sober, I started kind of feeling just like empty and depressed again. And I thought it was because I was too sober. It wasn't the sobriety that was a problem. What I've come to realize is that there's a lot more to it than just like being sober. When I say
So this is an excellent insight. This is what I was trying to highlight with climbing on one rung. When you are trying to reach God through doing the exact same thing over and over and over, you're going to burn out. You're going to hit a wall because you can't spiritually progress just doing the exact same thing over and over and over. You need to go through all of the planes. You need to go through all of the Sephiroth on the tree of life, so that you can reach the ultimate understanding, which is what in Christian theology would be called apotheosis, which is Kether, the crown. Um, if we want to use the seven chakras to elucidate this point a little bit further, maybe you're in an Eastern tradition, um, he's getting stuck with that the throat chakra here. So when you think that you have everything, when you think that you're feeling in unity with God, and you just keep hammering away at the same practices, uh, and you make what the Buddhists would call, you make a nest of your ideology, you make a nest of um, your reality, then you're going to get hung up in one of these chakras, whichever flavor your sense organs prefer the most. And so Togi's saying that you feel like you're getting further away from God. That's a little bit of a misnomer because he's not getting further away. Staying in the same chakra, staying in the same level on the Kabbalah. So let's say he's at Tiphareth. Let's say he just experiences the unity of God. He experiences beauty and everything. Um, that will get dull, or that will get kind of boring after a while, but it won't get boring in the sense that you are taking away from the Sephiroth. It gets boring in the sense that you're not climbing the tree. His whole thing where he feels further away from God isn't the fact that he's actually going down the tree. It's more that he is just staying still and he's used to moving up. And that's what you'll experience in a lot of mystical tradition and a lot of religion, is that you'll get that initial hit of climbing up the early rungs really fast. It's like if you're picking up a new skill and you're good at new things, you can typically learn stuff a lot easier um, when you're at the beginning stage. You can make a lot more progress a lot faster, it feels like. And then the mastery and the excellence and the subtle discrimination between what you need to do to advance at a higher level, those get much more fine and much more subtle. And that can make it feel like you're slowing down or even going backwards. Take a look at retrograde motion. So retrograde motion is what the planetary bodies go through. And this is why a lot of tradition is mapped onto cosmology. Very simply put, retrograde motion is that the Earth is going faster around the sun than another planet or Mars. So it makes it look like Mars is going backwards, but they're both going in the same rotation and direction. So he's experiencing a kind of spiritual retrograde motion when climbing the tree. So let's keep going.
say that out loud, it's like sounds super obvious, but at the time, I was like not clocking to me. And when that bender didn't fix that hole in my heart, in my time of reflection, I'm realizing that the hole in my heart was the God-shaped hole in my heart, that I wasn't.
This right here is a moment of realization many people will not come to. This right here from Togi is one of the most excellent spiritual enlightening thoughts you can have. Um, in the heart of man, and this is what the fall from Eden is, and this is what original sin, the concept of original sin is. Um, it's the process that leaving the garden nails into your heart. So original sin is the idea that you have everything, you're in communion with God, you can eat of everything, you can have everything, you're blessed, you have all of this stuff. But the temptation to think that there is more, the temptation to not be at peace with that emptiness is exactly what will cause the fall. And so when Togi is doing this balancing act and in Tiphareth, okay, in that middle chakra for beauty, so you see he's at this thing where he sees everything is perfect, everything is right. Um, he's at the most difficult point to balance spiritually because any degree to the left towards severity or any degree towards the right towards mercy will push him back down if he's not very, very conscious of climbing and what he needs to do to climb up. What you need is to confront the demon of time. So you're confronting Karanzan. Karanzan is a demon who dwells on the opposite side of Tiphareth, and he convinces people that uh, the time that you spend here is meaningless. He's the demon of time. But the way that you defeat that demon is through the path of severity, okay, and strength, and you recognize that it's all an illusion, and that's how you climb to the next one. And then once you defeat that demon, there's another one who lives on the bridge to the mercy Chesed, but he'll get there when he gets there. So we'll keep going here. One other thing I made a note of for Togi experiencing emptiness is that actually in Buddhism, the entire point is to reach emptiness. And emptiness, in a sense, for Buddhists, is a balance between both of those pillars of severity and pillars of mercy. It's the pillar of equilibrium, homeostasis. And so the Buddhists, they want to ascend up this tree straight up the middle path, the pillar of mildness, the pillar of equilibrium. And there is a very fine road you can travel. It requires extreme mental discipline. You're going to have to be like a monk in most cases to climb through Da'at, through death, to get to the crown without falling into any of these other pillars of severity or mercy. But I think as a Westerner, the best path forward, as specifically for Togi, would be to start being conscious of where he is, whether he's falling into the pillar of passivity or the pillar of activity. So we'll keep going here.
Chasing God anymore. Sober or not, if I'm not chasing God, I more or less feel empty. So I guess the moral.
So that's another great subtle point here. Chasing God is the pillar of mercy. Chasing God in ascending is that active principle of ascent, okay? And when you don't feel like you're chasing God, then it feels like you're having to receive whatever God is giving to you. And that can maybe feel a little uncomfortable for people who are very deep in their practice of faith and very deep in their practice, the experientialness of the faith. So when it feels like you can't climb through practice anymore, you want to flip and do the opposite side, or maybe do some research into what demons are holding you to what standard um, to ascend. Now, I'll tell you, Togi seems to be stopping at the gate, stopping at what Robert Anton Wilson would call chapel perilous. He's experiencing this mystery that exists in emptiness. How can something that is empty be full? How can you have, a source, an all-loving creator, that just perpetually loves and abounds in love? How can you have a sun, like literally the sun, the solar body, that only radiates? How can you have an entity that only gives out, and never takes in? That's the mystery of nuclear fusion right there. But we're talking about nuclear fusion of the heart and of the soul. And so that's what Togi is trying to realize and rationalize using the pillar of mercy. And that's why emptiness feels scary. You got to realize that emptiness is a vehicle for experiencing all of the other forms.
Moral of the story is, yes, I love God, but in reality, I need God. The emptiness that I feel has always been an issue of giving myself to Christ fully. And with giving myself to Christ fully, sobriety is a side effect of that, but I can't place my sobriety as getting closer to Christ.
So this is another subtle point I want to talk about. The reason why sobriety is a vehicle for him to ascend through that pillar of severity, cutting off that sobriety, so the cutting off of an addiction. The reason why that's a vehicle for him to ascend is because it's a sword he's using to fight the demon that lives on the bridge, the demon of overindulgence, whichever one of the seven deadly sins you want to call it, whether it's gluttony or sloth. But he's using that pillar of severity to cut through, and that's how he ascended from that beauty to strength. And that's why he is transitioning over to the mercy, the pillar chesed, with mercy. And he's realizing that his tools have to change for him in order to advance even further.
When I started building a relationship with God, it's kind of like going to the gym. Honestly, it makes life way harder because you now add another element of your life that you need to get better and better at. It's like, imagine in a world where you go to the gym and you work really hard, like you love the grind, you love getting in shape, and once you bench 225, you're like, I'm good. And then you just stop progressing in the gym. You're gonna lose a lot of the benefits of going to the gym. That meaning, the benefit of going to the gym is not to bench 225. It's to have something every day to work harder on, to work towards, to be becoming a better man. When I'm saying this out loud, it sounds stupid. And I feel
Okay, well, Tug, if you're listening, if this happens to get to you, you're not stupid. You're just grappling with concepts that have been intentionally removed from our dialect and from our English language to cause confusion and prevent people from escaping, um, basically Malkuth, the physical world. Saturn, the cube. But anyway, the Tower of Babel, the fall. Um, the point that Togi is making here is very interesting. So the entire idea of a chase or of a needing to progress, and the fact that you can't enjoy the fruit at the end, um, it really says more about the way that you interpret your role in the world and your role with God. So God has set forth a lot of things and a lot of challenges for us. Let's take a look at Matthew here. So the idea is that you need to constantly be grinding, you need to constantly be hustling, you need to constantly be pushing 225. Okay, now 275. Okay, now 315. Matthew targeted this specifically. He wrote when Jesus said that you don't want to store up treasures on the earth. Don't store up a heavy bench press for the earth. Okay, God does not delight in you just accumulating raw strength for the sake of accumulating raw strength. Okay, he doesn't delight in you accumulating $300,000 Cabo trips for the sake of accumulating $300,000 Cabo trips. And I'll cross-reference this with an Old Testament verse with Ecclesiastes. So all things are full of weariness; a man cannot utter it. The eye is never satisfied; the ear is never filled. This is saying that the sensory organs are always going to deceive you into believing that there's more that you can experience. Okay. And, you can amplify all sorts of things. So, if you think that ice cream is good, wait until you've been starving and then you have ice cream. Wait until you're dehydrated in a desert and starving and then have the most immaculate uh, bowl of ice cream you've ever had. There's always a layer deeper. And then, okay, now imagine you're starving in the desert and you get some cocaine and ice cream. Now it's an even another layer. And you can just keep adding on more and more things. And that's the idea that your sensory organs are never going to be filled. There's a story about the wise virgins as well in Matthew. And this is basically an account that's telling you that your senses are the five wise virgins, and there's five foolish virgins, but the idea is that your sense organs are never going to be satisfied, and that's why they are the eternal, untouched, the eternal virgin sensory organs. They will never be filled. And that's not a bad thing. That's a very good thing because it allows you to experience reality in a much higher degree once you master them and rein them in. Discipline with your senses allows you to experience a much more thorough range of emotion and a much more thorough range of existence when you use them at a higher level of consciousness inwardly. Okay? So let's keep going.
Feels like this is all a given. I don't know how this wasn't more obvious to me. I really can only remember 2 months of my life where I've truly felt 100% happy, like fully fulfilled and fully happy. And that was the 2 months leading up to the Togi trials. After I met Bryce Crawford, every day I was obsessed with getting closer to God. I remember life was so good back then that I actually prayed to God and I said, God, I don't even want to go to heaven. Life is so good right now that I don't want to go to heaven. I just want to stay here in this moment in time forever. And looking back on it, what I've realized is that I went to heaven the day that I fully gave myself to Jesus Christ. Not just talk about God and...
This is a very excellent teaching as well. I'm surprised. Well, I shouldn't say I'm surprised, but Togi is very spiritually advanced if he could put some names to these experiences he's going through. So the fact that he is realized, number one, that heaven isn't a place, but it's a state of consciousness is an excellent breakthrough. Okay, the fact that he said he could stay in the Tiphareth, he could stay in the contemplation of beauty for a period of months. Means that he was balancing the pillars of severity and the pillar of mercy. He was balancing this pursuit of God and also the receptive, the capturing of what God wants to give him effortlessly for a period of months. And that's fantastic. And you'll realize that you don't need to leave earth to go to heaven. You can take heaven, the crown, consciousness, and bring it to earth. That through the principle of logos, Jesus Christ. So that's the principle of Christ to logos. Well, we can't say that. Logos means something else in English. But the Vesica Pisces. The Vesica Pisces, the fish. If you've heard about the miracle of the fish and the bread, it's feeding your consciousness and feeding your body. But the Vesica Pisces is this portal that opens up the crown in the physical plane so that heaven can physically manifest on earth. And so that's why you see in a lot of Christian imagery the Vesica Pisces. And so that's why Jesus is always sitting between these two circles in this kind of slit. And that's why he's the fish. The fish is literally a slit. Christ is the fish, okay? And he's the fish that lets consciousness come through into reality. And that's the entire thing that Jesus tried to say with bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. So amazing that Togi is realizing this. I just wish he had some better terms to put to this so he could really climb further.
Act like a Christian, but to truly in my heart give my everything to Jesus Christ. That is the day I went into heaven, and I kind of fumbled the ball super hard, and I just stopped pursuing the whole thing because I thought I had done good enough. You know, once
That is another very good point. I'll bring us back to the hermeneutical loop. When you've reached this precipice, you feel like you shouldn't do anything or feel like you've achieved everything. I'll talk about Catabasis, and not the novel. Apparently there's a popular novel for this now. but the actual meaning of catabasis or catabasis is it's a descent into Hades, and there are many archetypical stories about this, like Orpheus, the Odyssey. There's the Aeneid, and this is Orpheus going to the underworld with Eurydice. Um, but there are many, many stories about people who go to the underworld and who travel through the lesser. Even Jesus was tempted in the desert after 40 days. That was his catabasis. Okay. Um, but the principle he's talking about is called Wu Wei in Eastern ideologies. So Wu Wei is the idea that you basically do nothing outside of that what you can do. So it's not that you've reached a spiritual level of enlightenment where you need to do nothing. It's that doing nothing is reaching the level of spiritual enlightenment that's been perfected. It's Laozi called it no effort. Okay, and it's about not doing, so it's reaching that 225 bench press and realizing you never needed to bench press to begin with. Okay, but you're going to keep bench pressing and getting better at it because that's the task that God set before you. Okay, it's the grasping, the urging, it's the any sort of states of consciousness that get you towards hell, that get you towards descending the tree of life, where it feels like you're not doing things the right way. That is the state of confusion, and that is that grasping that leads you away from doing nothing and leads you towards action. Um, Hindus called this Purusha and Prakriti. Um, the Eastern cosmologies talk about this. There's action and knowledge, okay? And the only time where you really need to act is when you need to break down the material world to acquire knowledge, so that way you can go back to attaining the sense of unity and stability at top of that pyramid that you're trying to talk about metaphysically. Okay, so let's keep going.
Once I got sober, I was still obsessed with the attention, the money, the views, the women. I was putting all of that above God, but I need to put God above all of that. I almost feel
Congratulations, Togi, you've reached another very spiritually enlightening thought. So, putting Malkuth below God is the correct way to align yourself. Otherwise, when you invert the tree of life, you get the tree of death. And that is what a lot of New Agers like to do. So I won't get too far into this, but this is, you use the angels to ascend the tree of life, and you use demons to descend the tree of death. Okay? And a lot of interesting individuals in organizations and secret societies use um, the kind of empty shells of inverting what you should do to achieve various means in different ontological and different ideological structures. Like basically, it's magic and stuff. But that's what Bohemian Grove is. Don't look that up, or what the Israelites were doing with Moloch. And anyway, we'll keep going.
guilty that I was like tricking God. I know you can't trick God, but I almost feel guilty that I was like, oh look, God, I'm sober, like I deserve my spot in heaven now I can go enjoy all the other things of this world. But that's like a lot of yap. I guess the main point that I'm trying to get across here is that I just spent $300,000 on a bender with all my friends, and it doesn't compare to the fulfillment and happiness that my relationship with God brings me. If that didn't bring me happiness, how many more women, how many more drugs, how many more yachts, how much more could I ask for until I'm happy, you know? And a lot of people don't like when I talk about God, and a lot of people.
So I'll agree here. We talked on this earlier. He's referencing the Ecclesiastes here. There's nothing that can fill your mind. There's nothing that can fill your thing. There's no amount of partying and drugs and whatever physical experiences you could have in Malkuth. There's no amount of that that will ever get you to Kether, to the crown. It'll never get you closer to God. Okay? Now, you need Malkuth, you need the five senses, you need those physical experiences. Like, that's why we're here as spiritual beings embodied in an incarnate flesh. We need this incarnate existence so that we can climb and know God through all of these different lenses and perspectives. And the big struggle here, the big valley he's trying to cross is Da'at, and that's knowledge, pure, unfiltered, mystical, experiential knowledge. Um, this is what the term gnosis is called. Okay, gnosis is the pure knowledge. It's mapping the experience with the context, with the time, and that is pure knowing. And so that's what Togi is grappling with very efficiently here. Um, he's grappling with the scale, the balancing, trying to make his heart as light as a feather to enter heaven.
Will say, oh, he's not real, whatever. But okay, regardless if I'm right or wrong about the existence of Jesus Christ, it is awfully convenient that the 2 months of my life that I've felt fully fulfilled and happy are when I've been chasing God. I have every
One small tangent here I'll note is that anybody who tries to beat you down with semantics and talk about this, they're all falling into the law of the excluded middle. Okay, and this is where our fedora tipping atheists are great. Um, God exists in a realm beyond true or false. Okay, and he exists beyond the word existence. So we can go back. I'll make a video on this, but on Ein Sof so the these things that are actually outside the tree of life or that kind of envelop it. So Ein is nothing, Ein Sof is the boundless, and Ein Sof is the boundless light. And so this is what like God the Father, the monad, is supposed to kind of encapsulate. But people who say that God isn't real is technically correct in the sense that he is non-real. Like he is the non-reality that bears reality as the Father. And then so you can say God is also real because he's like physically incarnate as this Vesica Pisces, as the portal, as the Christ Logos, the Word, the principle of rationality, the Promethean flame. Okay. Now he both is and he isn't. So where does that fit into your logical ontological system of P or not P? Okay, it's both and neither. So it's what we call the Aristotelian dialectic. And so basically that just means we split everything into is or is not, and there's really no middle ground there. But you know, look at the Trinity and the wisdom that's trying to teach that for anybody interested.
everything in life in excess. Good health, some influence, and whatever, a ton of money. Everything of this world in excess, and it feels as if none of it matters unless I have a relationship with God. And that's, I guess, what that Bender has taught me, is that no matter how many friends and boats you got, it means nothing without God. If I have
Yep, and I'll agree here with that statement. When your consciousness is living in a higher plane and your body is always tethered to Malkuth, you'll never get that full satisfaction that you could be where if you bring both of them together. So when the kingdom of heaven is within you and you are within it, when you dwell within the kingdom, okay, uh, when you dwell in that middle equilibrium, that mind between mercy and severity, and your body is also there, that's where you get the most um, full of life experience, the flow state, the wu wei, the art of doing nothing, the perfect balance.
have nothing, but I have God, I have everything that I would ever need. What does Solomon call it in the Bible? Vain. It's all vain. The things of this world are all vain. This is a Bible verse that I read this morning. This is gonna sound stupid, me trying to regurgitate this. Okay, forgive me. Yeah, let me know in the comments what verse I'm trying to refer to. But it's like, you want to stack your doubloons in heaven rather than stacking your doubloons on this planet, because when you die, you leave with everything that you came with, that being nothing other than your soul. So if you stack all your doubloons on this planet, eventually you're gonna die, and some dude that didn't even work hard for your doubloons is gonna get your doubloons, and who even knows if he deserves the doubloons? Like, all the doubloons that you've been, saving up, and then you die, and then like some in random like government agency gets your house or whatever. I don't know how exactly it works, but the point is, if you stack your doubloons in heaven, that being while you're on this planet, you're a good person, you build a relationship with God, you spread the good news of Jesus Christ, all these wonderful things, then you're stacking doubloons in heaven, and you get to go to heaven and have all these doubloons, like this wonderful.
Now, this is an excellent insight from Togi. The verse he's referencing is Ecclesiastes in here. It's something about leaving them for things to come. I know exactly what he's talking about, but I don't have it off the top of my head. It might be this one. Yeah, vanities of vanities. What good is it to leave things for those who didn't work for them, basically? That's a great thing. Ecclesiastes is great. The point that he's also trying to make here is, the whole thing about Jesus Christ and pursuing things that are beyond just the flesh. He's getting there. He's making it up the chain. Yeah, we'll keep going.
Full mountain of stuff. But if you spend all your energy collecting of this world, it's infinite. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one.
I'm going to stop him here before we get there. One thing that I did want to note is that he's experiencing a very, very subtle divinity here by saying that, oh, you should be stacking up for heaven. But one thing that you'll realize is that when you do things for the sake of a reward in heaven, that is not the same as doing things for the sake of God alone. So what I mean is, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, okay? When the Father who sees in secret will reward you, okay? And this is not emphasizing the fact that if you hide your good deeds, you get rewarded. It's the fact that you should not be looking for a reward to begin with. Your reward will be given to you through God, okay? In secret. You do not do good things because you will get a reward in secret. The good things come from you doing the good things. I know that's a little bit confusing, but the point I'm trying to make is that when you bear fruit in the world will take that fruit. And if you bear fruit even in heaven, the fruit that you bear, this goes into a concept from the Divine Comedy, Dante Alighieri, the different tiers of heaven. But it's great that you're doing things for God and spreading the good news, but if it's not for the sake of, like, literally just doing it for the love of the game, just doing it for the love of the ball, okay, then you're kind of missing out on a higher level of fruit there. But that's another subtle teaching. I'm not trying to shy anybody away from doing the right thing. Just make sure you do it for nothing, okay? For absolutely nothing. Not because I'm going to get 72 virgins in heaven when I go do something for a certain ideological faith, but it's that your reward already awaits you in heaven, okay? And so this is all a byproduct of God blessing you.
What is it? Something along the lines of The eyes do not get satisfaction in seeing, and the mouth does not see satisfaction in breathing. The point being, and there's no amount of accomplishments or drugs or things of this world. You can have literally everything and it will never satisfy you. Just how you can see forever and it will never fully, you can be grateful, you can express gratitude, thank God that I can see, thank God for my many blessings, but you're never going to be like, wow, that is like I just saw so hard that that's all I ever need to see again. Really what you need is a relationship with God. Okay, moving on to the next thing. This has been a ton of...
All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. Excellent from Togi. I hope he sees at least a little bit of this, or maybe comes to understand the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life, as a vehicle for him to get closer to God. But the biggest valley he needs to cross is this mystery. Okay, he's getting stuck on the mystery of death, the mystery of knowledge. And that's the point of this channel, is to elucidate the importance of Da'at, of knowledge, for climbing this tree. Because so many people just try to use one pillar or the other. Narrow is the path that leads to heaven. Okay, this video's gotten a little bit long, but I think we're going to wrap it up there. Good work, Togi, and yeah.